Welcome back to the show. It may be Sunday, but we got a lot to unpack. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $4.31 trillion market cap for crypto. The market's up 0.7%. Bitcoin, 123,300 plus. But congratulations, they just hit an all-time high about 9 hours ago at 125,000. Now, history says, it's not facts, it doesn't mean it's going to be guaranteed, but history says that when Bitcoin runs, once it cools off, it's alt season, right? So I'm just getting excited because I'm not sure if Bitcoin's even done running or not. I mean, it might run even harder. And I say, let it. I got some in my IRA. So you know what? Run, Bitcoin, run. Ethereum 4,500. I wouldn't own it because of Wanzang and CCP China, but that's just me. I'm not telling you what to do. XRP number 30 spots, $3.01 here. We're up 0.3 on 24, and we're up 8.5 on the 7-day. Range of price between 294 and 306. How many people are missing that 270 range right now and wish you got a little bag? Yeah, that's why I did it. I mean, I didn't have a ton of money to put in it, but I did it. And I'm glad that I did it just for the discipline. So we're ranging between a tighter range than normal, but nonetheless, we're in a solid range and XRP is strong like bull. But let's start here. With that all-time high from Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto's holdings wallet now holds over $134 billion worth of Bitcoin. And, you know, you have to ask yourself, look at the risk that is there if we don't truly know who Satoshi is, and I think we do. The four people that did it, that Homeland Security interviewed, nonetheless, that risk of that bag being open, that wallet being open, and then a dump on the market could be catastrophic. And I tell you, I don't know what happens, but I mean, I have to wonder if we end up seeing something like the privateers brought into the game where they let who's they? The US government allows for what is an old rule called mark and reprisal, where you let privateers actually work on behalf of the government to achieve the ability to hack back crypto assets like Bitcoin and other assets from bad actors. Now, I'm not saying Satoshi's necessarily a bad actor, but what I am suggesting is that imagine if the US government, out of security, because this has become a full-blown market for Bitcoin, digital gold, as you will, what if the US government were to hack Satoshi's bag? I mean, I happen to believe that the US government agencies, three-letter agencies, created Bitcoin. So it basically just saying we gave them the keys, right? We have the keys in the drawer. But nonetheless, imagine that if the US government actually went after Satoshi's bag and acquired that for a Bitcoin reserve, they'd have 134 billion plus to counter some of that debt to start off with. So to me, I don't know what happens, but I think this mark and reprisal that Christian Carlo and I spoke about on stage at XRP Las Vegas 25, and he spoke about it in other interviews, is going to become a very real thing as we move forward in this new digital world. Now, let's go here. Now, we know also we're in the middle of a government shutdown. We're now on track for the second longest government shutdown in U.S. history. And it is despicable, but that's where we're at here. And it could be forecast that we see a shutdown for 3 weeks. Now, isn't that interesting? Okay, while that's happening, let's take a look at what was implemented. This.
Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear.
This is the truth. And we know this. We also know that there was an executive order to start implementing the new modernized payment system from the Treasury to the banking system starting September 30th, and the next day, October 1st, the government shuts down. No, I said this yesterday, but that's quite interesting to me. And yet, while we're here in a shutdown, Christian Carlos says in the next 5 years, we're going to see this.
Ryan, I predict to you now within 5 years, virtually most of the money moving around the world, most of the dollars moving around the world will be moving on tokenized digital networks. And within 10 years, I predict to you that there won't be a securities offering, a debt offering, an equities offering of any significance that's not tokenized on chain. And those securities offerings that remain in an analog state will be like those bearer bonds in DTC's vault, the coupon clipping bonds that don't matter anymore. Non-tokenized, non-digitized securities will be like those old dusty photo albums, and securities on chain will be like the digital photos on your smartphone.
I don't think you could say it any better than he just said it. And meanwhile, while we're seeing all of that, the US and the UK appear to be in lockstep for crypto ETFs, as the UK just scheduled to remove its ban on Bitcoin ETFs this week. The sixth largest economy in the world. And then we have the October Showdown, where we are expected to see multiple ETFs for XRP and other digital assets too, and I hope they all are approved, to potentially be streamlined and greenlit just like that. Now, if we go off the initial dates from the first original filing, that would put us at October 18th with Grayscale, October 19th with 21 shares, Bitwise the 20th of October, all of these in October, Canary Capital on the 23rd, Wisdom Tree the 24th, Franklin Templeton the 25th, CoinShares the 25th. But what will we see? I mean, the government shut down. Will these things be approved while the government shut down? I don't know, but I do see the UK aligning with the United States here on these products. That is interesting to me. And again, at the same time, September 30th, we were supposed to see the implementation of exactly this.
I have an executive order for your attention relating actually to government payments. Historically, checks issued by the Treasury are, I believe, 14 times more likely to become the subject of fraud than electronic transfer payments. This is an executive order that's going to push the Treasury Department to modernize its payment system to ensure that where possible they're using electronic methods of payment as opposed to paper checks in order to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, which is obviously an endeavor that we've been pursuing in numerous aspects of government under your leadership.
It's basically modernization of equipment and methods, and it's something that really I think he's going to be a great Secretary of the Treasury wanted, Scott, and so we're doing this, and we have other modernization programs going on. We could let somebody else, whoever's next, whoever that may be, do it, but it's something that should have been done 25, 30 years ago.
There you have it right there. And then that leaves me here. The U.S. modernization of Treasury payment system implementation was to begin on September 30th, and the U.S. government shut down the day after on October 1st. Now, in order to upgrade my computer at my home, I have to reboot it, which means I have to turn it off. Will the U.S. government be on the XRP ledger and other protocols once the shutdown is over? Asking for a few of my friends. I really am wondering this. I don't know at the answer, and I'm not trying to hang it out here like, oh, it's going to happen. I don't know the answer, but I think it's a great opportunity to turn this negative into a positive. So we will see what will happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, or maybe it just picks up and resumes where it left off. At the very least, we'll see there too. But then I come back to this, we know that Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderati went and met personally with President Trump. We also know from this recent clip that Eric Trump praises the Ripple CEO and others.
How do you feel about Doge? How do you feel about XRP Ripple? How do you feel about, Ethereum? Where are you with the other three?
Know all of them extremely well. Know Brad very well at XRP, and he's done a great job. Know Ethereum very well. I'm one of the guys who was early on this year saying buy Ethereum as it's crashing, and Ethereum's come ripping back. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I'm a big fan of Ethereum. Bitcoin is digital gold. Ethereum is definitely the oil by which all financial systems are going to run on. and they've done tremendously well. And I think honestly, cryptocurrency, all the altcoins, I think are going to do well as Bitcoin rips. Those are going to follow.
There you have it right there. Eric Trump knows exactly who Brad Garlinghouse is. I got to tell you, this is super exciting to me. You notice he turned that conversation. He mentioned he knew him. He's doing a really good job as well. And then he'd start talking about everything else. Soon everyone will know about Ripple and XRP true intended use case. Don't believe it. It's still true. And then here I come back to this, ladies and gentlemen. How do we unlock this market? And if it is, in fact, that we're watching the reboot and upgrade in part with the US government shutdown and when the doors open back up, if we're seeing that upgrade and the change and the transition to blockchain, distributed ledger technology, things like XRP Ledger and others, then the US government's going to need a way to get these assets so they can hold on to some of this value, right? And I think they would do it this way.
This is the one to do it.
Now, they're floating a lot of ideas, Chris, about how to acquire some of these digital assets. Are you hearing anything about the different suggestions on that? And there's obviously, I've talked about this. I know other people have floated the idea. Is it out of the realm of possibility to consider that there would be a new bond issuance of digital assets in the future? Not next Tuesday, but in the future.
Ryan, I predict to you now within 5 years, virtually most of the money moving around the world, most of the dollars moving around the world will be moved.
That actually started by accident. Sorry about that. Let's go back to this really quickly here.
Or the idea, is it out of the realm of possibility to consider that there would be a new bond issuance of digital assets in the future? Not next Tuesday, but in the future.
Oh, I think it's more than a possibility. Yeah. I think you're going to see it at multiple levels. I think you're going to see it at the corporate level. I think you'll see it at municipal levels. And I think ultimately you'll see it at the national level. And I also think that one of the things that really bothered this president about the private administration, government sees crypto routinely as part of law enforcement. In fact, they're not even able to currently quantify all the crypto that is held by government because some of it is at the state and municipal level from routine, police stops. And the prior administration would at least, what was at the federal level, they would sell off routinely. And it annoys this president they did, though, because that they do that, because had they held on to it, we might be able to pay down some of the national debt. So he's committed to holding on to the seized crypto. And that's something that doesn't need congressional authorization. They can just do that as a routine matter. And it's across the board in terms of different crypto. Beyond that, they're also thinking about how do we create something that's more like a reserve? The difference between a stockpile you just collect. A reserve is something that you actually actively utilize. So our strategic petroleum reserve is something that is not just used. You may think it's only used if we have a shortage of oil, we release some oil. No, it's actually used strategically and for monetary policy purposes because the dollar is tied to the global price of oil. If our economic adversaries, like OPEC, decide to reduce production to drive up the price, we can sell from the reserve to counter that and reduce the price and therefore control the exchange rate for the dollars. So
now, see, this is what I love about this man. He gives us the opportunity to bounce the ideas that we've been speculating about on the channel for a long time by bringing them to him, and others let us do this too, and we're grateful for all that do. And bounces speculation off of a former regulator, the former head of the CFTC, and the current head of the U.S. Digital Dollar Project.
we use the strategic reserve. Well, when you've got the BRICS countries talking about creating a rival currency to the dollar and perhaps pegging it to physical commodities like gold or digital commodities, then it makes sense for us to actually reserve that to do the same thing we do with strategic petroleum. So that's very much, again, an earlier panel talked about these coming rivals to the dollar. There's no question that there is desire amongst many countries, the BRICS countries and others, to come up with a rival, but that is why the United States is stockpiling gold. That is why the United States is now stockpiling crypto because they're aware of those threats and they are committed to preserving the dollar. Now, we've got to get Congress on that same track. The White House is doing their job to cut spending. We've got to get Congress to do it. And if any indication, the recent debates over the budget bill and the tax bill are not encouraging about Congress's ability to live off the credit card.
And you know what's interesting is when you talk about the oil comparison here, in the creation of this digital asset stockpile, they can sell the assets out of there. And I think some people have mistakenly looked at that as a deficiency to that. But what I saw is that that is just like oil. They can sell oil. So if they acquire these digital assets and over time they can sell them, they could price control these assets in question just as they do oil.
And you know, countries have been doing this since the dawn of time.
Right.
There you have it right there. So what are the chances of this? Well, I asked Grok, and Grok just estimated a probability of about 28% currently in the current situation. However, it goes on to say here, if Bitcoin Act reaches the floor vote by the end of the year, it's plausible that the odds could rise to 40 to 50%. Otherwise, any chance of like seeing a bond issuance direct without a bill passage falls below 10%, which makes sense to me. I don't see this happening without a bill passage to get the job done. Now, with that being said, check this out. Boom, right here from XRP Update, National Trust Bank Charter for Ripple filing is now public with the OCC. The full regulation means direct access to the Fed system and compliant real USD. And I say, Ripple National Bank Charter filing is public with the OCC. This could be a November to remember, because it should be around November when we get the information on that application, whether it's approved or not. Again, the pinkish square here from Egg Rag Crypto, shout out to you, my brother, 313 to 320. That's the range. And we know between 265 and 360, 365 is a channel of noise. And we are still in that noise. And everything is still looking extremely bullish. And here you see Crypto Wizard say over the 300 days, XRP's been trading just below its previous all-time high, holding its incredible gain. Only a matter of time until 365 breaks. Remember that key zone that Egg Rag Crypto's told us about for so long. And then 450 is inevitable for our next target. And then here is Chart Nerd, who shares that, you know, XRP is gearing up for 2017 style run and is highly unlikely to bleed back down to 50 cents. It will hold the line above $2, January 2018 candle close highs, and full send to its Fibonacci extension targets of $8, $13, $15, and $27. And these are very similar targets that we've seen Egg Rag Crypto talk about and Dark Defender talk about for a very long time, and they're still relevant on the chart. We need the fundamental news. We need Congress to get their butt back into work. We need to get this legislation passed and signed into law, and then let the Wall Street and the financial system take care of the rest. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.